We weren't given a choice. On a beautiful, sunny summer Sunday morning in August, we were tested. They said he was a monster, heartless and cold, an empty shell of a man. How else could he go into a place of prayer and worship and cold-bloodedly murder everyone in his path? Did he not understand that the only ones that come to temple that early in the morning were the truly selfless and devout? That's right. He was a monster. Before he pumped 5 shots into my father from close range, I wonder if he looked into his eyes. If he would have saw a man who exemplified the great ideals that this nation was built upon: dedication, hard work, charity, service, and ultimately sacrifice. At the very least, he would have saw a grandfather who wanted nothing more than to make it home to see his grandson and give him one last piggyback ride. Even monsters understand the importance of piggyback rides. I often wonder how my mother must have felt. Mom, when did you know that this monster was loose inside of our temple? Was it after you heard the screams of children running inside? Or was it after you heard gunshots pierce your ears like fireworks on the 4th of July? Did you feel the 5 shots that entered Dad? I was told that lovers can feel each other's pain. So did you feel the one that entered his spine, leaving him unable to walk, bleeding out and helpless? Yeah, I did too. That's probably why it's so hard for us to walk around with our heads held high these days. Some people say that he must have confused Sikhs for Muslims, kind of the way that we confuse people for monsters. But when we judge from a distance, don't we all just generalize? These people are like this, those people are like that. Relying on these generalizations because it's harder to educate ourselves on facts. And even if we are educated, what is it for? So that we can magnify our differences to justify our wars? War on gangs, war on drugs, war on terrorists, war on immigrants, war on faith, war on the faithless. Ultimately, I think we're at war with ourselves. Or do we educate ourselves to understand that monsters are not simply created by God? They're created by the very society that we live in. The ingredients we use to make them are suffering, hatred, isolation, and minimization. It's no wonder that we resort to name-calling and labelizations. Monsters killing monsters. That was okay, as long as our peaceful neighborhoods weren't burdened by their gunplay. Problem is, as of late, more and more so-called peaceful places, peaceful neighborhoods, are being burned by gunplay. Places like malls, theaters, schools, universities, synagogues, mosques, temples, churches, and gurdwaras. And this is exactly what happened on Sunday, August 5th, 2012, when a white supremacist gunman walked into the Sikh Temple of Wisconsin, murdered 5 men, 1 woman, left another man in a vegetative state where he still suffers today, shot a police officer 15 times from close range, leaving him to die, before finally ending the siege that day by taking his own life. One of those that would lose their life that day was my father and temple president, Satwant Singh Kaleka. The question becomes, how do we respond? How do we react? To understand the response and the reaction, I think it's important that you understand who we are, because it was clear that the shooter did not. First, we are Sikhs. Sikhism is the 5th largest major religion in the world, with about 1 million subscribers in the United States and Canada alone. Following the attacks on the World Trade Center, Sikhs have overwhelmingly been the target of numerous hate crimes. This is largely due to our outward appearance of turbans, beards, and this post-9/11 paranoia. While Sikhs in this country especially are confused for Muslims, we are not concerned with explaining the difference. This is because we believe that an injustice for one group means an injustice for all of us. And it was these social justice principles that Sikhism was founded upon. The equality for all, irregardless of caste, class, color, creed, or culture. In fact, our first guru, Guru Nanak, would go so far as to publicly denounce all allegiances that separate people from their oneness and their humanity. The word Sikh means learner. Therefore, we believe that we are on a lifelong journey in search for truth and God, both truth and God being synonymous and omnipresent, meaning that you can find either in every way you look, in everything you do, and in everyone you meet. While truth and God are synonymous and omnipresent, and you can find them everywhere, we ultimately believe that we came from one creator. We call this creator Ekunkar, but fundamentally respect that others call this creator by different names. While we can call these creator by different names, we believe that the same energy source that created her also created him. And this creator knows no race, knows no nationality, no political affiliation, and definitely knows no monsters. Second, most Sikhs are either first or second generation immigrants. This means that we are relatively new to this whole American experience. And contrary to the hate rhetoric, to the dangerous hate rhetoric that's being spewed by people like Donald Trump, when immigrants are given an honest opportunity, they are automatically, genuinely instilled with a sense of productive progress, not only for themselves, not only for their families, but for the new community they now call home. And I remember this being the case in point for us, as we moved from our native Punjab, which is nestled between Muslim-dominated Pakistan and Hindu-dominated India. At the time of our move in 1982, Punjab was being engulfed in political turmoil, largely due to a growing call for independence by then Sikh nationalist leaders. In her attempt to squelch this uprising, then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi ordered Operation Blue Star. Operation Blue Star was an attempt by the Indian government to capture Sikh militants, Sikh terrorists, by any means necessary. Finally, in her attempt to break the backs of Sikhs, she ordered the attack upon the Golden Temple in Amritsar, which for us is the most holy place. Following the innocent bloodshed at the Golden Temple, Indira Gandhi herself would be assassinated by her own bodyguards, which touched off years of rioting and opened up a wound in India that is still to heal today. So, my family, being former farmers, especially because many of those being targeted as Sikh terrorists was the farming community, we monitored and mourned these events. But while we monitored and mourned these events and these atrocities happening, we felt a sense of great appreciation that we were granted reprieve in this new country that we call home. Finally, just as important as faith and foundation was my family. I remember my family always instilling upon us this notion that you can do anything, you can be anything, and you can change the world. My father would become temple founder and president and build a congregation on the south side of Milwaukee into the thousands. My mother, despite only having an 8th grade education, would become a successful entrepreneur in the city of Milwaukee. And my brother will become a successful Emmy-awarded filmmaker, shedding light on the seriousness of government secrecy, childhood development conditions, and the dangers of lax gun control laws. Me? My journey would be a little bit different, but I too remember having this yearning to want to change the world. So as a boy, I thought that the only ones who could change the world wore capes. But I quickly realized, and I wanted to be a superhero, right? But I quickly realized that I couldn't fly and I didn't have superpowers. As I became a teenager, I thought that I thought that I had to be popular to change the world, right? Until I realized that popularity came at the cost of not being myself. As I went off to college, I thought that to be able to change the world, I had to be educated. But then I realized that the practical was more important than the theoretical. And I started to let life be my teacher. After I graduated, I went into law enforcement and thought that I would change the world by locking up bad people and keeping good people safe. I quickly realized that the world wasn't that black and white. Soon that gray became too much for me to stomach, and I walked away from policing, and I went into teaching. And I thought that I would change the world by teaching, but I quickly realized that students and teachers are completely different priorities, especially where I was teaching. And finally, when I was going to give up on my dreams of being able to change the world, August 5th happened. August 5th, the worst race-based hate crime that this country had seen in 50 years. Since the time that 4 little girls endured the impact of a bomb intended for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. coming out of church on a similar Sunday morning set off by the KKK, which ignited the civil rights movement into full gear. August 5th, where I lost my father, nearly lost my mother, and could have lost the lives of both my children and myself if my daughter had not luckily forgotten her Sunday school notebook at home, causing us to turn around, waste 20 minutes on the road, but probably at the end of the day, saving our lives. August 5th, the day that our community felt the most hopeless, helpless, victimized, and vulnerable. And adding and compounding to this vulnerability was the sense of not knowing anything that was going on that day. We had different jurisdictions. We had law enforcement from all over the place, both locally and federally, responding. But somehow, some way, we were getting our information from CNN and Fox News. And it felt like we were being left in the dark. Before I go on to the next point, there's too many shootings happening. One just happened 2 days ago. Before families need to find out about their loved ones from media, let law enforcement tell the loved ones what's going on. In our desperation that day, I reached out to an unlikely source. 8 hours after the shooting stopped, 8 hours, across the street in a bowling alley, in the basement, there was this little girl. This little girl couldn't have been over the age of 9. And she had this 100-mile stare, like she had seen something that she wasn't supposed to see. So I walked up to her and I asked her, "What happened? What did you see?" She tells me that as the shooting started, her brother, and her mother grabbed the key from their dad, ran off in the basement, and waited till the shooting stopped to come out. Her and her brother were the 2 first people to come out. And they came out because they were looking for their dad. She says as she walked upstairs, she saw people laying in their own pools of blood. And I asked her, "Did you find your dad?" She says, "Yeah." He was laying on the floor in the middle of the hallway. I tried to wake him up, but he wouldn't respond. And then when I looked into his face, I saw that one eye was missing. And out of that eye, there was blood trickling out. And I knew that her dad probably was dead, but I didn't say that to her. And in my own selfishness, I asked her, "Did you see my dad?" "I saw your dad. He was laying in that same room, laying on the floor, and he was murmuring something." he was murmuring this word, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru. Now this is a call to God, but it also means taking from darkness to light, taking from darkness to light. And she said, he told me to go find a hiding spot, so I found a hiding spot, and I hid in the bathroom. And he kept saying this word until he said this word no more. And at that point, I knew that my dad probably didn't make it. Before law enforcement or anybody made the notification, I knew it. We knew it. And then I started to think to myself, okay, he died in the place that he helped build, and he was calling out to God for himself. And then I started to think about these 6. First-generation immigrants, 6. And then I started to think, these were some of the most selfless people that we've known. They were the ones who were early there. They sacrificed for everybody else. And then a light came on, and I said, you know what? They knew what happened to them. They understood it. So they weren't praying for themselves, but instead they were praying for us, the ones that were left. Now, I know that some of you guys maybe found tickets online, maybe your friend called you, maybe you just thought you got here on happenstance, right? But I want you to understand that nothing happens by happenstance. There is a purpose for everything. And the purpose you are here today is because you are the answer. You are the solution to those 6 dying prayers. And as I talk to you, I understand that I might be talking to the choir. And in this room, we have superheroes. We have the educated. We have the smart. We have people that are going to change the world. But if you don't do it with that foundation of healing, it is all for naught. So please understand, as we leave today, I'm going to give you a take-home item. That's to heal the world. That's the only take-home item that I'm going to give you today. Please don't understand and say, okay, well, Pardeep is standing up here, and he got like this overnight. It's been 3.5 years. We went through our struggles. I went through my personal struggles. I went through times when I looked at my children, and I would think to myself, this is the last time I'm going to see them. I would be at a Starbucks and be paranoid and say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to make it out of here. I couldn't pay attention to a meeting. I hug my kids longer than I should. I love my relationships more than most people should, right? I'm living life like it's the last minutes of my life. And that's what Chardi Kala means, the spirit of relentless optimism. Live life like it's the last minutes of your life. Live it fully. Embrace the vulnerable. The whole saying is Nanak Naam Chardi Kala Tere Bane Sarbat Tapala. What that means is in the power of the Spirit, please take that power back. If we vilify people and we make them to be monsters, all we do is wash our hands of our ability to be the solution for them. Right now, we're vilifying too many people, and we're turning them into monsters, whether it be on social media, whether it be interpersonal, whether it be whatever. It is not the action that defines you. It is the reaction that defines you. So UWM, react in healing. React in relentless optimism. And finally, react in peace. UWM, peace.